This video is sponsored by me. Read my original novel, Dance of Frozen Death. Link in the description. Greetings, fellow mortals. With Puss in Boots: The Last Wish on my mind recently, I've been thinking a lot about where it came from. And I mean Dreamworks as a whole, not just the Shrek franchise. On one hand, the studio has been responsible for some of my favorite animated Western films, Shrek 2, How to Train Your Dragon, and the Kung Fu Panda franchise. On the other hand, Trolls, Boss Baby, and their desperate attempts to make the Groods a franchise still exists. Of course, not every creator or studio has home runs, it's just that there's a huge difference in quality between Dreamworks' different projects. In fact, there's a wide variety of quality between individual films in a franchise. I would argue that How to Train Your Dragon 2 and 3 are dips in quality from the original, and Shrek 3 is just a giant stumble. That's why I find it to be a miracle that the Kung Fu Panda movies haven't stumbled yet. We got number 4 coming around the corner, and I don't know if it's exactly necessary. At the same time, who doesn't love Kung Fu Panda and want more of it? It's literally my go-to example when I say that any concept can work.
Oh, beautiful.
I think that the key to quality control involving the movies from DreamWorks comes from if the people involved actually care. Was the cinema created because someone had a story to tell, or was it because the executives wanted franchises and cash cows? That's why Puss in Boots 2 worked so well. That was a story someone desperately wanted to tell, and it shows. If the bosses demand more content from something that's already reached the end of its arc, then of course it's going to dip in quality. For a long time, that's what I thought the problem with Shrek 3 was. Shrek 2 was so perfect. What was the point of Shrek 3? But I was wrong. Puss in Boots helped me realize what the problem actually was. Shrek 3 was pushed out with a specific direction in mind. I don't know who is responsible, but the reason that the film falls apart is because Shrek doesn't complete his character arc. Now, you might be asking what his arc actually was. Well, that's simple. Shrek 1 was about him realizing that love actually does exist and that he doesn't need to be alone. Shrek 2 was about him realizing that you have to change for your partner in some ways, that marrying someone means marrying into their family, and that he can show the greater world that he's not just some big, stupid ogre.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
So, what would be the next step after falling in love, marrying the princess, and finding acceptance with his new family? Having kids was a good, logical decision, but there was something else, something that Shrek needed to become in order to complete his arc. Instead of spending the entire third movie avoiding becoming king to return to his swamp, Shrek should have spent the entire film realizing that he was the one that needed to be king. Yes, I think that the way to overall fix Shrek 3 is to make Shrek king at the end. Throw out the arc for King Arthur. Take out most of the comedy and body switching stuff with Merlin. In fact, don't have a journey at all. Instead, have the entire film take place in Far, Far Away. It keeps the movie from feeling too much like a repeat of the last stories. Instead of searching for one perfect person to replace him, Shrek could hold auditions/job interviews for the next king. That way, you could theoretically keep Arthur and Merlin for a short gag. Even keep the body switching stuff for a few minutes, but not for too long, because it wore out its welcome pretty quickly.
For 5 minutes. Could you not be yourself? For 5 minutes!
As Shrek tries to interview his replacements, he worries about being a father, but because he's still in Far, Far Away, he can interact with Fiona, which is another weakness of the third film. It was time to show them being partners instead of being separated for the entire movie. Throughout the many interviews and discussions, Shrek comes to realize that he's adapting to his role as the king, and that the people are growing to love him for the first time in his life. There is no angry mob. But what's the antagonistic force? Well, Prince Charming could be an antagonist, but I don't think he should be the main villain. He's not intimidating enough or sadistic enough for that role. For the entirety of Shrek 2, he was kind of a pathetic mama's boy. Instead of rallying the evil fairy tale characters, I would say use Charming more as comedy. He's trying to interview for the role of king in several different ways with many different disguises. Instead of having Charming as the main villain, focus on something completely different. Maybe construct an old feud between green swamp ogres and gray bridge trolls. They've both been ostracized by society, but they have their own grudges that go back before anyone can remember. A leader of a band of trolls could be the major antagonist of the third film.
Walt, please just hear me out, please!
Here's how you go about it. Show a flashback before the original movie where Shrek and this troll were rivals. You can use the example from the Three Billy Goats Gruff Tale. Trolls can get their names based off what happened in their lives, so he could be called Hornback because of the fact that he has a goat horn stuck up his rear end. There could be a running joke that he can't sit down and he's very much angry about it, but he's not willing to ask anyone to pull the horn out. Anyway, Hornback and Shrek had a feud for years because they lived in the same swamp. Eventually, Shrek forced Hornback away. Now, years later, Hornback heard that Shrek is about to become king and he fears that Shrek will discriminate against trolls. Like Prince Charming, Hornback could recruit other trolls and outcast fairy tale characters who are tired of being kept out of far, far away because of how they look. Meanwhile, Prince Charming can tag along saying that he's an outcast too now, but they just end up throwing him around like a rag doll most of the time. Like in the original film, there could be an attack, but instead of an easy takeover, a large battle can break out. Shrek and Fiona need to work together and organize everyone to fight back against the invading forces. Fiona wants to personally be in the battle, but stays back with the other princesses because of her pregnancy. Throughout the fight, Shrek seems to be winning until he's confronted by Hornback. Hornback reminds Shrek of what a bitter person he used to be. How Shrek didn't even care about the other people who were discriminated against. It was always about him, and he didn't even think about using his new position of authority to help those who were suffering. It was all about finding a replacement and getting back what Shrek wants. Distressed, Shrek fails to fight back. Donkey and Puss help him, but everything stops when Charming arrives. Using his good looks, he snuck past the guards and kidnapped Fiona. While Hornback is delighted to see Charming hold a knife to Fiona's neck, everyone else is horrified. Donkey shouts out that only a coward would threaten a pregnant lady. That causes Charming to pause. He doesn't want to hurt anyone's mother, he just wants to make his own mother proud. She wanted him to be king no matter what. It's what she told him every day. The loss of Fairy Godmother scarred him, and he would never want to do that to anyone else, even the unborn. Outraged at Charming's lack of resolve, Hornback lashes out. He beats Charming within an inch of his life and threatens Fiona himself. This forces Shrek to surrender. Far, Far Away is taken over and Shrek is scheduled to be executed, just like in the original third film, but this time with an actual guillotine instead of a play.
Pardon me, I'm not one complain normally, but this basket's full of heads.
In prison, Shrek speaks with a gravely injured Charming. Charming says that while he will never completely forgive Shrek for what happened to his mother, he now realizes that it was her fault. Charming and Fairy Godmother made their decisions, and Shrek's group were defending themselves. He and his mother were in the wrong, and Charming says that Shrek shouldn't be punished for what happened. In Charming's eyes, Shrek is a better man, a better husband, and a better king than Charming ever could be, and soon Shrek will be a better father as well. Charming jokes that because his face is all bruised up, he's not worth much anymore. Shrek comments that he thinks Charming is worth far more than just his appearance. This is where the prison break can happen pretty much the exact same way as in the original film. Fiona leads the charge out of the dungeon, all of Shrek's allies rally to save him. Right before Shrek is about to be executed, his friends show up and fight. Shrek battles with Hornback at first, but eventually stops. Instead of lashing out in anger, he apologizes for the wrongs that he's committed to Hornback. Shrek wasn't always a good person, but he's trying to be better, just like everyone else, and that they should put everything aside for the next generation to come. Realizes that even now he continues to be selfish. People need him to be a king who can see from anyone's perspective. It was just like when he first met Fiona. He thought he wanted to be alone, but he was wrong. He thought that he didn't want to be king and go back to his swamp, but he was wrong. Now he has the real chance to make things better. He offers a hand to Hornback, asking the troll to be an advisor and an ambassador so that no one is forgotten or persecuted in Far, Far Away ever again.
Hey, who left this bowl of onions here?
All of the invaders are moved by Shrek's words, but Hornback refuses to listen. His anger and hatred from the past wrongs won't let him have a better life. He tries to kill Shrek with the guillotine, but Charming intervenes, getting Hornback chopped through the spine instead. In his last words, Hornback mutters that at least he'll be known for more than having a goat horn in his butt. After that, there can be a time skip, showing how Far, Far Away has been rebuilt. Shrek and Fiona are now king and queen. They have a just rule, and everyone is welcome in Far, Far Away. They're constantly busy with their duties and the triplets, but they're happy. Shrek's swamp has magically been moved into the castle, and they have dinner with all of their friends every night, including the court jester, Prince Charming. And they all live happily ever after.
Like that's ever gonna happen. What a load of...
I think that this new storyline would be fulfilling for Shrek's story. It's a completion of his arc. From experience, the desire to be alone and isolated has faded as I grew older and made connections. I realized that what I thought I wanted and what I actually wanted were two different things, and that I needed to sacrifice who I once was in order for me to become who I wanted to be. I think that the message of this version would be stronger, the main villain would be more personal and funnier, and I think the redemption arc for Charming would be a nice touch to it all. I'm not saying that this is a perfect draft. There could still be problems and issues that show up, but at least this way you could have Shrek forever after if you actually wanted to. Normally, I don't advocate for actual remakes, but Shrek 3 is such a misstep that left a bad taste in the entire franchise, and I don't think it's recovered since Puss in Boots 2. I think that my version will fix the problems while keeping the original intent of the movie intact. And yes, I realize this is fanfiction, so that means that this is just for fun. Nothing will come out of it besides me sharing my headcanon, and you are welcome to disagree with me. In fact, I actively encourage it. What do you think? Am I completely off base here? Do you like Shrek the Third? Do you like my version better? What would you do to fix it? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your perspectives. And thank you so much for watching. If you like my takes on storytelling, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It would really help me out. Also, please remember that I just released my original novel, Dance of Frozen Death, book 1 in the Written in Stone series, link in the description. And my second book, Above Heaven, will be released in May 2023. I hope that you will check them both out. I appreciate you. Do not despair.